It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented this week by Woodbine's High Five Jackpot Carryover. It's now up to $1.3 million. Yes, and the mandatory payout is coming. Coming up, we're going to talk about South Florida and Hurricane Irma, but first, Ray, Practical Joke is heading to the breeding shed after this season, his 3-year-old season, to Coolmore's Ashford stud. He won the former King's Bishop, the Allen Jerkens Stakes, and then the announcement was made. There's been a lot of discussion around this because the sport has a dearth of older horses running on dirt, and a lot of it, the reason is that they get sent off to the breeding shed too early. So what do you think about this move?
This is a complicated subject. We want people to buy yearlings. We want them to race them. We don't want them to breed them early. But if you buy yearlings, when you're someone like Seth Klarman and William Lawrence, the owners of Practical Joke, you do it with a business plan that says we're going to buy X number of yearlings, and we hope 1 or 2 of them really succeeds to the point they become stallions. And when they become stallions, they become valuable commodities. And these guys know what it is dealing with commodities. That's what they're financiers and hedge fund guys, so they know money. They realized when Practical Joke won the Allen Jerkens Stakes, his second grade one, he won as a 2-year-old as well. This is when the horse is most valuable, so this is when they can make a deal. They don't need the money, but they need to be able to prove, I guess, that they can make money doing what they're doing. They're businessmen. I would say the difference between them and Ron Winchell, the co-owner of Gunrunner, is that he could have retired the horse after he won a grade 1 last year as a 3-year-old, but he kept him in training for another year because he likes racing more probably than he likes the breeding end of things. So he's a sportsman. The other guys are businessmen. That's the way this business is.
Yeah, well, it's a marketplace. The racing business has become a marketplace of sorts, the breeding end of it anyway. No, it's great. We need to have more Winchells, guys who are the sportsmen who want to keep racing, or you have to create incentives for others to behave differently, in my opinion. I'm more a proponent of incentives rather than disincentives. The current, so some of the discussion around this has been maybe we should tighten the market by, reducing book sizes, restricting book sizes. That kind of disincentive behavior I don't think works, and I don't think it would even be legal when it wound up in the courts. So I prefer taking a more encouraging approach. The ownership experience, for example, can be improved at a lot of racetracks, and that is something that's important because when owners, they enjoy that experience, they're like, well, I'd rather do that for another year rather than, just sell off all or a part of the horse. And then, of course, Ray, as we've talked about, there's a problem here. There are way too many grade 1 races for juveniles. Do you know how many there are now? 17 races for 2-year-olds. So they get their black grade 1 type, and then they want to hang it up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, such as that. There's clearly too many grade 1 races for 2-year-olds, in my opinion. And another factor is there's so many grade 1 sprints. When Practical Joke won the Allen Jerkens, it was one of something like 13 or 14 grade 1 races for 3-year-olds and up under a mile. You go back before the Breeders' Cup. So back, say, to 1983, before the Breeders' Cup started, you know how many grade 1 races there were under a mile at the time? 1. The Vosburg Stakes was the only grade 1 sprint. Now we have 13 or 14. So the breeders that control the American Graded Stakes Committee have expanded the number of grade 1 sprints just out of proportion to the ridiculous extreme, just as the number of 2-year-olds. So they want people to be rewarded quickly with 2-year-olds and quickly with sprints. They have given up on distance racing as a foundation of our sport, and I think the American Graded Stakes Committee is really to blame for a lot of the problems we have in the sport right now.
And of course, they have a certain interest, just like the
Sure.
owners do who buy these horses. There's a conflict of interest with the greater game, which is again back to why we need someone like a commissioner or an office, a league office, to have rules in place that incentivize different types of behavior. You can't have the breeders deciding the graded stakes. I mean, that's just an absurd notion if you would look at it from the outside. It just makes no sense. And what we're going to end up with is what we're seeing already. 5-horse dirt graded stakes where the bettors don't want to get in on it, which is going to reduce handle, continue to reduce handle, interest in the game from a betting perspective. And before you know it, if you're not thinking ahead, we're going to wind up in a terrible situation.
Yeah, we have all these races for older horses. The Breeders' Cup was created to keep horses in training. We have the Dubai World Cup now, which is 10 million or whatever. We got the Pegasus World Cup, 15 million. There are incentives to keep horses in training, but it's hard to resist that sell now feeling when you have a Grade 1 winner, the horse that won a Grade 1 at 2, and then he won a Grade 1 sprint at 3. Now is the time to sell him. No, now isn't the time to sell him. Now is the time to see what else he can do and run him at 4-year-old as a 4-year-old like Ron Winchell did with Gunrunner. I think it's really sad that the game has come to rewarding sprinters and rewarding 2-year-olds to the extreme it has.
What do you think about this? We have a poll on the website. Are there too many races for 2-year-olds? Too many races for sprints? Too many of both? Or is the mix just right? Take the poll on our website, PaulickReport.com. Okay, Ray, I want to ask you, since you are in South Florida, you have a secure place to go to, thankfully, you and your family. However, there are a lot of horses down there. There's Gulfstream Park, which is really close to the ocean. So I'm wondering, what preparations are in place to protect the people and the horses there.
Well, I have been a little preoccupied with securing my family members' homes and getting them as safe as can be. Getting our preparations in place for the storm. Gulfstream did a smart thing. As soon as they saw where the storm was heading, they said, we're canceling racing on Thursday through the weekend. Obviously, they're not going to run Saturday, Sunday, but by canceling Thursday and Friday, that allowed them to put all of their resources and energy into getting things prepared at Gulfstream Park for the storm, getting the horses in as safe a place as they can. They can't move the horses out of state. The panic started here on Monday with gasoline and water. The roads getting out of state are clogged. So Gulfstream did the smart thing. They have the Palm Meadows Training Center, which is inland, and that's much safer than Gulfstream Park as far as I know. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you can only move them so far, as you point out. Then you just have to hope that the winds aren't so awful that it just rips the place apart, because the water damage, certainly the water level, that you've got to get them away from that first. Yeah. That's the priority. So all right, well, we'll hope for the best for everyone in that part, and you stay safe as well.
Thanks.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show, presented by Woodbine's High Five Jackpot Carryover. How much is it, Ray?
1.3 million.
And we're approaching mandatory payout as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.